sponsors today of this event. So my presentation will be a little bit different. I'm not going to give you a sales pitch or anything, don't worry. I'm just going to present Alef Education, who we are, and I'll talk about some of the research that our research team has done, our data scientists have done, and how that's relevant to some of the conversations that are going on today and tomorrow. Thank you very much for having me, and let's jump in. So rather than try to make a joke in the beginning here, I thought I would start with a little illustration. This is somewhat typical of a classroom, a smaller class size, probably than what you're used to. But you can see that there's a lot going on, and as educators, you're looking at this through the lens of an educator, and you are doing a little quick analysis on this. You're looking at possible behavior, classroom management needs, some intervention, maybe someone needs to be woken up. And each student is different. And of course, this is all valuable information. This is all relevant. And if you look at the same picture again, and you add a metric, you say, let's say this is an engagement level. And so once you've added a metric, you enrich the picture. You have the same example, the picture is richer, and you are now able to get more information, more details, have some empirical evidence. I think we all are aware of this. Is that better? Get a little feedback.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Does it work?
Oh, much?
Yeah.
As long as it's not squealing, I think we're all right. So we have two characters in this story. If you look up here in the top left, you have Sam and Alice. Obviously, Sam is sitting in the back. He's less engaged than Alice. And I'll come back to them in our story. But first, let me tell you who do I represent? Who is Alef Education? And Alef Education began in 2016 with a grand vision and mission to transform education, and to transform education for learners using technology such as AI, adaptive learning, personalized learning. And beginning with one pilot school of 8 students, not even a school, this one pilot group. From that, successful implementation of a learning platform, expanding to the rest of the UAE, working in charter schools in the US and Indonesia. Now, what Alef is doing is a little bit different than some of the ed tech companies that you might be aware of. We are involved, I'm the Senior Partnerships Manager, and so we work in partnerships with ministries of education and private school groups, and we cover research, education publishing, so we're actually publishing content, as well as the technology delivery as well, so that the education can be delivered in an adaptive format and personalized. And so, having said that, in my presentation now, you begin to see how we pull all of these pieces together. So, we are the education technology partner for the Ministry of Education in UAE. We have approximately, we're coming close to 1 million students now on the platform. And so with that, we have a lot of data, a lot of information working across the curriculum, so 9 subjects. So all of that information, all of those data points, we're able to assess them from different stakeholders, because education is an ecosystem. There's lots of different stakeholders, different inputs are given from the parents, the teachers, administrators, and different outputs are needed. And we have technology that touches on all of this, and our data scientists take this information and they say, how can we take something like a curriculum and break it down? How can we break it down into little batches of knowledge? How does a data scientist look at a curriculum? Subjects tend to be segmented. This is how education has come up. We have science and math and English. with data science, you can see the interdependencies between these different knowledge points, so that you don't have to, you start to see the fuzziness in these boundaries, and you start to see the cross-curricular connections. And we can assess those and understand, and then learn from that, and have better content that is going to make an impact and a more efficient educational path for students. So, I am not a data scientist, I'm not an educator. I've been working with education for 20 years as a guidance counselor originally, and now I've been working in educational publishing. This is from our data science team, this is not my research, so I won't be fielding questions after this. I'm just going to present some of these findings. But I'm happy to have conversations afterwards. And there's two bits of research that I'll talk about. A lot of the conversation today has been about AI and generative AI. AI has been around for a while. We know that the last decade has been a very strong decade in the rise of AI. It is useful also for machine learning, and this is something that happens on the back end. When we take large data sets and we can crunch them and find not only correlations, we can get insights into what impacts both positively and negatively in the students' learning. And so this was done for both PISA and TIMSS data sets to analyze what are some of the learning factors, what are some of the factors that affect learning outcomes, academic performance, using TIMSS, using PISA. And there were social, family factors, social factors, individual factors, various factors. And as you can see here, these are the top, I believe this is 20. Language was the top factor. And in Abu Dhabi, math is actually taught in, is taught the instruction of, the medium of instruction is English. And the language factor was the number one input, number one and most impactful factor, both positively and negatively. Reading, number 3. So we see the instructional means, the instructional language, both reading and language are the most important factors. And also self-efficacy. When you see self-efficacy up here, the knowledge, or I should say the belief in the self, that you can overcome problems, that you believe in yourself and you can overcome and problem solve. This was also ranked highly. And for grade 4 students, for TIMSS, it was actually ranked number 1. And so we find a consistency here in what are some of the core key drivers that impact math effectiveness. This was the second study. This was looking at global competencies and how they affect academic performance. And this was based on PISA results, PISA data sets. These 3 factors had a significant impact on learning. Awareness of global issues, again, self-efficacy of global issues, and intercultural communication. There were differences between male and female, private and public, and so all of these things, they were unbundled, and our scientists looked to see how they affect. Girls, the effect was much higher with that group than it was boys. And there was a lot to unpack, but what I took away from this, with the self-efficacy and how important that is, and that really struck me as a parent and someone who's worked in education for this long. What do we do with this information? So now we've got the research, and as I said, with Alef Education, we actually publish, we author content, as well as use technology to deliver the content. And so we began to work more content because we see that there is a positive impact from global competencies on academic performance. So we began to put that into our content and what we develop. We began to talk about metacognitive skills and began to put metacognitive prompts in the content. And working with educators in terms of the previous study for language, scaffolding the math instruction, because that's so important. So we made sure we were already doing this. We went back and looked again. Can we make sure that we're scaffolding the content appropriately? And we also do teacher training with teachers so that even math instructors, because even though English is the medium of instruction, we know that in reality, it's a bilingual classroom. These are multilingual learners and multilingual instructors. And so they're going to be fluid. I think translingual is one of the expressions. They're going to be switching back and forth Arabic and English. And so we wanted to look at that and see how it's taught, because we saw the importance of the language on math performance. So that's the content side, that's the authoring side of things. Now with the technology, this is where we begin to personalize and adapt. So adaptive learning, personalized learning, I think we generally know what this means. This has been studied since Bloom in the early days of kind of progressive education, to adapt to the unique skills and abilities of students, to their preferences. It could be interests, it could be preferences based on their time, when they want to do the task. Background and experiences. This is very important, and with generative AI, as one of my colleagues was saying, this is going to become even easier where you can adapt the background for the student, because we know that in international schools, a lot of times we take a textbook that's designed for a student in California and we give it to them here in Saudi Arabia. And they don't always have the right background, and that causes some friction in their learning. And we know that personalized learning works. We know that meta-analyses have shown that personalized instruction does have an impact. Some have shown that it is just as effective as small group learning. It's essentially a source of differentiation. It is a differentiation tool. And some studies, by some metrics, it can be 2 to 4 months of additional instruction. It makes sense to put the student at the center, right? To have the student, as an educator, you engage a student, you find out where they are, and you help to take them on their learning path, you help them along that journey. And so having the student at the center just makes sense. Going back to our students, as I'm wrapping up here with Alice and Sam, it's not controversial that different students are going to have different capabilities, different abilities. They're going to have different levels of motivation and engagement. And so we do want to adapt to their needs. We want to give them content and instruction tools and tasks that are appropriate. And this is supposed to be a simplified version of this. I don't know if it worked or not, but my wife told me that this one was too confusing. Essentially, these interventions, these little interventions in a lesson, when you go, you assess a student, you find out if something hasn't been mastered, you reteach it. This creates, these add up over time. And so if this is a student's journey across their scholastic, K-12 path, then someone can go off course if we're not able to assess them and catch them at the right time. And so it makes sense that we have personalized learning, and that we approach each student as individually and as customized and adaptive with them as we can. And even though they have different paths, that they will both be successful. Again, this is not my research, this is the research of our research team. We have a team of data scientists at Alef Education. Dr. Ali couldn't be here, unfortunately, so I was asked to present some of this stuff today to you. Thank you for having me, and I hope to have some good discussions with you around here, around the coffee table. Thank you.